with patchouli out the door to the big chopped hog that was parked on the center kickstand. Then they headed out for the 4-lane, and they thought it was lots of fun. We're taking this hog, but Tootie the dog with the automatic 45 gun.
Jake thought it was the best there was down the interstate he'd roar till the day he tangled with the county sheriff. They all called 104, 104.
Very humorous.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show. Night Dreams Talk Radio Network brings you the World Paranormal News with James Creechbaum. Now, the latest news.
This is Night Dreams Talk Radio Network News. I'm James Creechbaum. Alien Stock Festival returns to Rachel, Nevada in September. The owner of the Little Alien Ground Zero for last year's Alien Stock and involved in the other Storm Area 51 events due to its close proximity to the base, announced this week that her establishment will host the 2020 Rachel Alien Stock 2.0 event on the weekend of September 10th to the 12th. Needless to say, not everyone is as enthusiastic. Local residents have put up their own website pledging to stop it. Fireball recorded streaking over Arizona sky. A dash cam belonging to a resident of Tucson, Arizona, captured clear footage of a possible meteor streaking through the morning sky earlier this week, adding to the growing number of reported events in the state. Paris reported on Wednesday that he had observed a bright object falling through the sky around 5:35 a.m. local time that day while driving to southeast Tucson. Paris was not the only individual to capture the event. According to American Meteor Society, the nonprofit organization's website notes at least 64 reports for the February 26th event from Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, California, and Utah. A number of other individuals were able to capture the Fireball event on their own dash cams and home surveillance systems. The sonic boom created a 3.1 reading on the Richter scale, so that's fairly a sizable event. Residents in the state of Arizona have viewed and reported 5 separate events in February alone and a total of 7 events since 2020 began. 17 new planets, including Earth-like one, discovered by astronomy student. University of British Columbia astronomy doctoral student Michelle Kunamoto has discovered 17 new exoplanets outside the solar system by analyzing data from NASA's Kepler mission. Kunamoto's findings were published in Astronomical Journey in February 25th. Our research returned 17 planet candidates in addition to thousands of known Kepler objects and interest with 98.8% recovery rate of already confirmed planets. But this is really exciting find since there have only been 15 small confirmed planets in the habitable zone found in Kepler data so far, she added. Parallel universes exist, and we will soon explore them, a physicist says. Theoretical physicist Sean Carroll says that clues in the small-scale structure of the universe point to the existence of numerous parallel worlds. At quantum level, the vanishing tiny particles that make up the building blocks of everything don't even have a set location, just a smear of possible positions dictated by complex rules of probability. The theoretical physicist Sean Carroll was entirely happy with that. He says that the fact that tiny particles like electrons and protons don't have one set place in the universe is evidence that there are many parallel universes. Now, if you have a news story you want us to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio, contact us at Night Dreams Talk Radio News at gmail.com.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. I'm just waiting for the storm to pass by the compound. Now, David, we have some questions from James that he wants to ask you. Go ahead, James.
Great.
Oh, okay. Why did you pick the year 1926 and not, another year?
Well, because I found all these crimes that were that happened in 1926. I noticed that there were many more of these murders, especially non-mobster murders, that happened in 1926. And over the course of my 5 books, I collected quite a few of them.
And all those
then I had to look back and figure out why.
Yeah, all those 5 books, which one sticks out the most to you?
Of my 5 books?
Of all the murders, of the events that you wrote on about murdering, which one sticks out, which case?
Which case? Out of all these cases, one of the oddest ones happened. It's in my book, California Deadliest Women, and I got to take a quick look to find it right here. But this woman, she was from Egypt. She was born in 1967, which is like a really bad time to be born in Egypt. And she was she had female castration done on her when she was a kid, so she had problems having sex and stuff. She came over to America by herself when she was 18, and she was kind of a model. She was kind of maybe a call girl, you could say. Most of the time it was just like she would be hired to go to parties, of rich people, so it looked like they had used some beautiful women. And she was only 5 foot tall. Her name was Omania R.E. Nelson. And she settled down, but her thing was that she had to get into bondage to get any kind of sexual thrill. And she was known for enticing, before she was married, to entice guys to get tied up, and then she would leave with his wallet and watch and gold jewelry and stuff, and leave the guy tied up in his bed for like the whole weekend. And they'd usually get found because they didn't show up for work on Monday, and some coworker would go in and find a guy all covered in his excrement and stuff because he was tied up in bed for a couple of days. So she finally settled down, and her husband, did that kind of stuff on Thanksgiving 1991. And this is in Orange County, California. They got into their bondage thing, and she grabbed an clothes iron, and beat his head in. And then she proceeded to cut him up and cook him and barbecue him.
Oh, wow.
And she had his guts and stuff in plastic bags, and she asked like a old boyfriend if he could help her get rid of like these guts and stuff. And they called the cops, and the cops came over into the house. Instead of leftover turkey, she had like his hands were being fried in a frying pan when they came in, and she had dipped in she took his ribs, cooked them down, and had them barbecued. And she told the police that nothing tastes as good as the man I married. It's the sauce that did it. So she's still in prison.
I was going to say, what happened to her? My Lord.
She's still in prison. Yeah.
Wow. Now, what local killers in your area are you currently researching, or that kind of inspired you?
Well, there's one of it's a very famous among Sacramento people, and that's the Mad Basher in 1941. In 1941, I don't know if you've been to Sacramento, but we have a state park right on the waterfront, and it's like the old part of town. So it looks just like the Wild West, and it's all full of taffy shops and souvenir shops and stuff like that. But up until 1965, that's like where you'd go to score heroin and pick up a male prostitute. So for over 100 years, that was like the area of the vice area of Sacramento. So in 1941, they started finding these farm workers, cowboys, dead, and they would be beaten like crazy. They thought it was like a guerrilla killed these guys. And there's 5 for sure, and only 2 had names, and one guy lived. Only one guy lived out of all these, and that's where they got a lot of this information from. What happened is that this guy would come up to, there were a lot of like gay cowboys would be hanging out. And they'd say, hey, let's go under the bridge and drink some of this wine I got. And then he'd offer them a ride home after they were really drunk, and he'd go the wrong direction, get out in the fields, beat the crap out of them, kill them. So all these counties around all started, writing off their John Does the same thing. So more got were accused of it. So this guy disappears just before Pearl Harbor. Right? And so that led to everyone that saw him said that the car he drove was like a military car, an older car painted in military green. So this guy just disappears. The crimes all stop. I mean, it was a big deal in the papers and stuff. The murders all stop. It just disappears. So everyone thought that, hey, maybe this guy is in the military. So the odd thing is that in 1957 to 1958, he returns, and he kills 4 more people, possibly 1 female, but 4 more males that were kind of like the same way, and beat them to death. So no one knows if maybe he got transferred back to Sacramento, or maybe he was in prison, because it's about 18 years, and that's about what the average is for at least murder. And then he disappeared again.
Wow. Have you ever considered going to a prison and interviewing a killer for maybe a possible future book?
To talk to a person, a murderer?
Yeah, in prison.
No, I got no interest in that.
Okay, and what woman killer, really raises your interest, something you may consider writing maybe a future book about?
There's a thing with writers is that we try not to talk about our future projects because a lot of writers are thieves, and I'd hate to work on something for a year and then get beaten to the publication date of an identical book. So I kind of don't talk about what I'm doing next. I usually say the smart aleck thing and say that I'm writing a children's book called Mommy Won't Wake Up.
Okay. And one last question here. What killer out of all the killers fascinates you the most?
The guy in Tampa. That one really fascinated me. And I found, like, the first thing I found was maybe 3-4 years ago about the murders that happened. And then when I started doing more research on 1926, I started digging deeper, and then I found out only like 10 months later, the guy murdered again, and he was caught.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of murders, a lot of times they just don't go anywhere. It's like, we don't know. Especially in 1926, the police, they didn't have radios in their cars. Most of the time they were, the guy that got the job for a cop, it was a favor from a politician. Joe came back from the army, can't get a job. Oh, well, here, he can join the police department. You know, they were very unprofessional. In 1932, there was a guy, another cowboy, went crazy and went to the Crocker